How y'all doing today? Just wanted to give a quick update on the a little bit of business. So in my process of getting pieces together or getting the right people in place so that we can facilitate the buy of this janitorial supply company, got in touch with a lawyer, talked to my CPA, and or a customer of mine who is a CPA, and he recommended a lawyer. The lawyer pretty much told me, kind of put me up on game, and another friend put me up on game as well, and I think I explained that last time, talking about how you get to that number of 310K for the business itself. And the lawyer mirrored that and said, hey, that makes sense, that's usually what they do. But he's saying, first off, a corporate lawyer, when they work on purchasing companies or work on, back and forth with the purchase of a company, and he's done this many times in his 27 years of experience, so on and so forth. He's done this thousands of times. And he said, hey, listen, for price, I usually charge 2% of the sale cost. So, for instance, if in this case, 350K times 2%, or 2% of 350K is $7,000. He was throwing a number around about $6,000, $6,500. That does not include the cost of the CPA. So I'm probably even saying the CPA would cost another $3,000 to $4,000 to crunch the numbers. You're looking at about $10,000 in terms of doing proper due diligence in purchasing this company. Quite a bit, but it's understandable. It is a higher, I guess, fence, if you will, that you have to jump over, or a higher obstacle that you have to jump over, or point of entry. But if the company's worth it, then, or if the company's not worth it, then you saved yourself hundreds of thousands of dollars, and especially the amount of time that you would waste if it doesn't work out. So that was a good thing. Turn off this. Sorry about that. That was a good thing. You let me know. But he was saying, hey, listen, if you're going to actually buy a company like this and all they do is janitorial supply, to be honest, nobody sells anything that is making money, one. And two, even if you do go ahead and buy this company, for a company to ask $350,000 and not going through a broker or anything like that. Gentleman didn't talk to me yet about lawyers. We didn't even get that far. The owner, that is. So we didn't even get that far in the conversation. But he's like, if you're going to be doing something like that and you're looking at all of this, you should be looking at a take home of maybe about 175K as opposed to the 120K that the gentleman mentioned. Now, my business partners and I all agreed that it wouldn't even be. The 120K is something that, I mean, it's a little bit of an amount, but of course we're not going to get 100% of that, especially if we do a sweat equity buyout or if we go through that whole process. So that's one thing to be keep in mind, be cognizant of. But if we do something like this, looking at 175K actually makes a little bit more sense, because we're looking at something like economic downturn coming here in the next 2 to 3 years, actually next couple months to 2 years. And with that, this company might be cheaper. We might actually be able to get into it later on, if it's still around. But these things, like, that's very important that you're getting this. I'm getting this advice from the guy. He's like, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not a bad deal or anything like that. But if I'm looking at 120K of net profit, then albeit it's not that bad, but it's not that much either. Like, you could be doing better. And in my experience, something like that, 175K would be a lot better. And then, of course, we have to look in terms of funding, like how to fund this whole operation, what to do to even actually go ahead and go forward with buying this. And he said that we could work out all types of deals in terms of paying over time and making sure that there's a contractual obligation in terms of making payments or proceeds from the business, continued proceeds from the business, and things like that. So that's pretty important, and it's good to actually, I talked with somebody. I mean, he gave me the advice pretty much for free, Usually most lawyers worth their salt, they're charging you $400 an hour, which is actually his rate. But pretty much, if we're going to do something like this, 2% of the cost of the business or the buyout, and that's good to know. You know, if somebody's going to actually do something for us, then it's good to know his pricing. And then also, if I'm like looking at another company later on, then if it's a 500 grand or 500K company, then I already know that, hey, he's going to be charging somewhere along the lines of $10,000 just to retain him and his services. Oh, goodness. Retain him and his services. So that's really important. And I think it's actually, it was a good move for us to make sure that we put ourselves in the proper position to actually go ahead and buy this business. So I'm happy with that. It saves me money. I can keep the little bit of money that I do have. What else was there? My business partner did come up with another idea to approach him with, where we can just do things to actually improve his business and actually come in and act as consultants. I don't know if this gentleman will be on board with that. You know, first coming in, wanting to buy the business, and next thing you know, turning around and saying, hey, I want to sell it. I want to sell you services now. So looks like this guy really wants to just get out. He's an older gentleman, probably like I think he's a baby boomer. So that's just something that, you know, to be cognizant of when you're out there looking at businesses. A lawyer that's going to be doing proper due diligence for you and making sure that he has a Loctite boilerplate type agreement is probably going to look to charging you 2% of the sale cost of the company. If you're going through a broker, the broker's putting 10% on top of whatever the sale cost of the company is. So if it's 300 grand, the broker's going to sell it for 330. You know, you say, hey, I want $1 million. They're going to actually ask for another 10% on top of that, and then go through all the back and forth, possibly even making sure they have the proper paperwork and presenting that and making the company look good or looking better than what it is. Also, there's different types of due diligence. There's financial due diligence and legal due diligence, making sure that employee agreements and other things are in place. Then the financial due diligence, making sure that the numbers actually look right and we're not talking about something where the books are cooked or anything like that. And then, of course, there is what's it called? You can actually do physical due diligence, which is essentially if you're doing the physical due diligence, that's along the lines of making sure that the company, you understand how it runs on a day-to-day. So setting up a time to go to that company and spend a couple days on site to say, hey, all right, cool, this looks good. I like the way this is running. I like the way the operations are. Also, another thing that he informed me of in terms of just the conversation is that when we were talking, he said, yeah, usually an owner is going to probably stick around for 3 to 4 weeks for transition. And I'm like, oh, shoot. You know, I'm thinking I want the guy around for 3 to 6 months, at least available, so I can actually talk to him and say, hey, you know, what's going on with this? How do I deal with this? So on and so forth. You know, getting proper training on this if I'm going to take the business over. I'm used to running a janitorial company, as little as it was, and for the short period of time that I had it. But, you know, this is janitorial supply. You know, there's inventory that you have to worry about. There's other things that you have to worry about in terms of taxation and sales tax and stuff like that, and collecting that and making sure you send it off, you know. So a lot of things that have to be in place. So it would have been quite a bit of an undertaking for me to actually take over this company. I'm still open to it because of the amount of as we went through that live stream that I had where I went over the business plan that I put together. It was a fairly extensive, well, it was a decent overview of a 5-year plan that I think we could have executed and hit most of those goals, if not all of them. So it's all of this is pretty. It's been a learning or teaching experience or learning experience, and it's taught me a lot. And I'm able to pass the information on to whoever's listening. So I hope it helps and keeps people in thought. Talked to another friend about it, and he was like, listen, Mike, with some of the other things that you're doing, you don't even have to deal with this, and you can just open up something brand new, and it doesn't even have to be in this in this realm. But I'm all about diversification and prepping myself in terms of finances and positions, so that I can actually make money at all times, having multiple streams of income in different arenas, and also getting my team and people that I have around me, having them making money as well. So it's just something that, I looked at all of this and I was like, all right, cool. This seems like a pretty decent move. But from the looks of it, it's a no-go. And if I talk with the gentleman again, depending on if he wants to work out a deal of any sort, who knows? We might work something else out. But again, I still have to do my due diligence and put things forward and say, hey, listen, talk to somebody and say, hey, listen, this is what he's coming with now, and start looking at the books and making sure that the recipe looks right, and it's not being cooked improperly, if you will, I guess. Probably a bad joke. Anyways, as always, thank you.